Hey, what's up guys? Towels here with another video from Project Diablo 2 Season 9. Check it out, I've got a new aura. So I've got the blue one from defeating Rathma Tier 2. I also had the Tier 2 Dclone one from before as well. Now I can swap before them. Super cool. It's pretty darn stressful though, to be honest, so I'll see if I can make it to an Uber item at all this season, but if I do, you can bet I will be sharing it with you all. So the season's about 5 weeks in now, and we have definitely a very mature market. You're looking at it's basically a state where it'll be hard to sell any items that don't have GG slams or that are clean with really high rolls. So if you are late to the season, I would definitely recommend farming Corrupted Zones and Prime Evil Souls, as those are easy to farm, but most people are mapping or bossing instead. So they are going up in value, Worldstone Shards and Pez, respectively. However, in this video, I would like to focus on Uber farmers, aka bossers, and what items to look for when trading with them. Not everyone bosses, but most people do trade, and in addition to mapping and PvP, bossing is another major category of items that people optimize their gear for. So this video was requested by Soul Provider on Discord, so shout out to him for the great idea. In this video, I'll be focusing primarily on difficulty 2, Rathma and Dclone, because those are the ones that have the highest requirements for those fights, and also are going to have the most expensive gear, because you're really narrowed down to kind of a limited set of choices, depending on what class you're building. But then, as far as trading goes for this, the exact prices for a lot of this gear is going to depend season to season based on like popularity and different changes. For example, Charger is extremely popular this season, and that's why this grandfather is worth easily 30 plus high runes, and that's not going to be the case necessarily every season. Previous seasons, right, Odium was very popular, better one than this. This one's actually not that good. But Wolf Barb used to be very popular, but this season has changed because now Wolf Barb doesn't get to use Fury anymore. They can only use Feral Rage. I don't even know if that's viable or not. Other folks have said it's not, but not sure. But given that things vary so much season to season, I can't necessarily talk so much about pricing. But what I can focus is on kind of the reasoning behind some of these gear choices, some of the other options that I've explored and tried throughout the season, and then finally, just with that, hopefully giving you guys an understanding of kind of what to look for and what to keep an eye out for without necessarily providing an exhaustive list, because that's a little bit hard to do. So all that being said, hope you guys enjoy the video. Please, if you're new to the channel, feel free to like and subscribe. We'll get into it. Alright, so starting here with my Rathma setup, I want to focus on kind of the gear, the stats actually required for the fight, right? So focusing on this fight in particular, you're going to want to look at your max poison resistances. You're going to want that at 90. You want to look at your poison length reduction, which is basically like physical damage reduction, but just specifically for poison. When you're at in Hell, it starts at 200. You can get it down as far as 50. The stat sheet will also lie to you and tell you can go below 50, but in the game, there is a cap at 50 for that, so that's the lowest you can go to, and it basically just reduces the damage of poison damage significantly, right? So absolutely vital for this fight. You also want to look at fire resistance, surprisingly, so you do want to get some kind of max fire resist going on with it, because the Conjured Souls, which I can show in this clip, do a lot of damage with their Fire Fissure, and yep, that can put you into hit recovery and make you more susceptible to getting hit by the other spells like the Bone Spear or the Void Knight bolts and things like that. But so when I look at my skills, you can see that's why I've dumped points into resist fire and resist cold. Probably too many, because at this point this is really only a Rathma Gear setup. I wouldn't necessarily go into Dclone without any points into resist lightning, because Charger is a melee build, and when you're standing right in front of Dclone, it's very hard to dodge the lightning hose. It's not impossible, it's just annoying to do the entirety of the fight. So as a caster, or like a trap assassin, it's really easy to just avoid the lightning hose at all times, but as a melee character like Fury Druid, or in this case Charger, it's much harder to do. So bit of a tangent there though. What you also want to do is have some physical damage reduction, because out of the Void Knights in Rathma, you also have a physical one. So the purple guy, which I can show here, does physical damage with his bolt, and that can hurt a lot if you've got 0 damage reduction. And all of this is in addition to big health pool and a lot of damage, right? There's no escaping that. You are going to need to have enough health to survive and enough damage to get you through the fight in a good enough time where you're not going to run out of rejuvenation potions also, right? So all of those keys put together is kind of how I landed on the gear that I've got currently. So we can start with this weapon. Obviously huge damage is going to be really important here. The jewels that I've gotten here are enhanced damage and minus requirements. If you look at the amount of damage this sword does, the requirements on it are kind of insane because it's only requires 66 strength and 34 dexterity. For the amount of damage that it does is kind of crazy. I think the perfect jewels to be able to put in here would potentially be enhanced damage, minus requirements, +2 attack rating, +2 strength. Because since these requirements are so low, the +2 strength actually helps a ton with being able to equip the rest of your gear. See, I've got my setup kind of exactly put to the point of just being able to wear all this gear, because every point that I can put into vitality is going to improve my health. Alright, so I'm at 3.1k HP for this Rathma fight, and you can see I've got over 600 vitality points. And especially being a paladin, you get 3 life per vitality point. So that's absolutely massive. And then in addition to that, you'll see all bossers for tier 2, or difficulty 2, fitting in as many jaw runes as they possibly can, because that health pool, it's hard to get from other places, and so you really want to min-max that much as possible. Charger, and specifically, does struggle with resistances, and so that's why I've still got a bunch of runes and a lot of resistances charms here. Obviously, room for improvement. These could all have life on them. I really should do that, and then I can have a bigger health pool and be a little bit more comfortable throughout the fight. Right. Other things to look out for are also going to be max resistances slams, and so this amulet is a really good example of a combination of very good stats. Right, so you've got 75 PLR on it, which again is huge, right? 2 max all res slam, it's really good, and you've got some skills, some attack rating, some stats, all really good stuff, right? So I was very happy to be able to buy this recently, and that's really what helped me complete the difficulty 2 fight. Another source of PLR is going to be Gladiator's Bane. I love this item for the fight because it does add the PLR, the CBF, physical and magic damage reduction, flat, not percentage, but it also comes with +2 to critical strike. So when you look at the critical strike in my stat sheet over here, this item alone adds 51 critical strike. 51%. That's the same as 51% deadly strike, right? So you don't see any other item in the game outside of weapons that can give you that much damage in one slot. Pretty sure. If I'm wrong, please correct me in the comments below. But this item is really insane. Another option that you see sometimes is going to be Venom Ward, but I would say that is purely a caster option. You really cannot beat Gladiator's Bane compared to what Venom Ward would give a physical or melee character. So the max poison res slam on here is really important because I'm choosing not to go with Dariel's Visage or Venom Ward, like I said, which comes with like 10% max poison res, and so I need those from slams instead, so I can still save my slots instead of using Gull runes here, that I can put the runes and the jaw runes that I really need. And so these 2 slots together then give me 10 max poison res, 3 max poison res from this slam on my water walks, which again I'm choosing because 1, it gives nice life, and then also max fire res, which is something that you really want in the Rathma fight that a lot of folks don't necessarily expect. Yep, and so again, poison length reduction can get down to 50%, so having 25 PLR via like a rare pair of boots, gloves, belt, or ring would be really nice, but I just haven't been able to fit it into this build. So 50 is a good target to aim for still, but I was able to complete it with 75, and so it's good enough for me for now. Rings wise, I am looking at Ravenfrost with an AR slam and Wisp Projector with an AR slam as well. So your attack rating is a huge part of your damage calculation, right? So your chance to hit, especially in these fights where as you're attacking, you're essentially vulnerable to getting hit as well, right? Because and if you're standing there, in the skeleton waves or the void knight waves, and you're standing there swinging and missing, it's just going to take a lot longer to kill, and you're going to be standing still, potentially taking damage much more, right? When you're not attacking, you can just run around and avoid damage very easily. When you're forced to attack, like during the blood golems, skeletons, or void knight waves, then you're much more susceptible to getting hit also. And so you really want to maximize your chance to hit. And so on that note, I'm also looking at these Ghoulhides, which I think is very much a top option in this slot. So generally speaking, on gloves, you're able to get a -% target defense slam on those. It goes up to 25, so these aren't perfect, right? The only other place I can think of that this comes from also would be like an Eth rune in your sword, but that's a lot of damage to give up on your weapon in order to provide that, and so getting that slam on the gloves is really important. But also on here you see the attack rating against undead based on character level. 768 attack rating is huge, and I'll show that here by just looking at this Ravenfrost, which has roughly half of that amount as flat attack rating, right? And when I take that off, you're seeing almost that's a 4K difference in attack rating, closer to 3K, I guess. And that's because the 373 attack rating here is multiplied by your skills, by other items and things like that give you plus percentage to attack rating. So in charge, you see 510% attack rating. Your Wisp Projector, your Heart of Wolverine is also going to give you percentage and stuff like that. So it all multiplies, right? So if this Ravenfrost is giving, we'll call it 3K attack rating on there, then these Ghoulhides are giving 6K plus attack rating against undead specifically. And so that's going to include your skeleton waves, your void knights, and those are, again, just the toughest parts of those fights. It does not count against Rathma and Mendeln themselves. Those, even though they say undead on those monsters, they are prime evils. And so, no, it doesn't actually help on the bosses themselves. But again, the hardest part is those waves. So those minion waves is really where you need to focus. In addition to the res charms that I've also got a lot of attack rating and life charms. Oops, I'm still wearing a Ghoulhides. Somehow my res is still correct though, because another thing to focus on is also going to be your overcapped res, because Mendeln in the Rathma fight casts lower resists. So in tier 2, that's -35 all resistances. In tier 1, it's -29, and in tier 0 is 25 all resists. So you want to make sure that you're overcapped for this fight by at least that margin. The least important one is going to be lightning resist, because there's the lightning void knight, but his damage is pretty insignificant compared to the rest of what you've got going on. So if there is one to sacrifice, it would be lightning. Otherwise, like your Annihilus charm, what I choose to go for here is going to be a Vitality slammed one. Having 20 all res is nice here too. 83 is like 2 Vitality off of perfect on this, so really happy to have been able to buy this one. And yeah, all of that together gets me, again, what was it? 3.1k health, and then even with all of this, it's still not an easy fight. I've still died on this fight, and I probably will again. If you lose focus for even just a second, especially in the middle of those Void Knight waves, dying happens very, very fast. So definitely something to note, that there's a reason why these items can get so expensive, right? What I was able to do was buy the Shaco and the Gladiator's Bane without any sockets in it, and it took me several tries, but they were cheap without sockets, and then it took me a few tries with puzzle boxes to finally get the 2 open socket ones of each, but that was a pretty cost-effective way of being able to do it. The more you can plan ahead with these builds and understand like exactly what you want to be your build for the fight, the better. I do not plan like that. The folks that you see with kind of like hundreds of Dclone T2 and Rathma T2 kills are far more experienced than I am on these fights, and they definitely plan ahead way better so that they would have an idea of their exact setup. I did go through a lot of other options, for example, like this Soul Drainer, which is a really solid option, right? Really good item as well. It adds a ton of damage with the minus enemy physical res. The minus 22% target defense slam on here is incredible also. And then the minus 50 monster defense is really good too. It doesn't sound like a lot, but similar to the way attack rating gets multiplied, defense gets multiplied also. So the minus 50 kind of stacks and has a multiplicative effect also. So it's reducing the defense, even like the bosses themselves, by a significant amount per hit. So you definitely feel a difference being able to wear that. Another interesting item, kind of in the vein of poison length reduction, Death's Hand. This is a very basic low-level item, right? But you'll see that the prices on this, if you go look for it on the trade site, are kind of crazy because it is a Rathma choice. Right, the 75 poison length reduction in this glove slot is huge. There's nothing that comes close to it in the game, and so if you can get an FCR slam, a deadly strike slam, a minus target defense slam on this, this can be worth quite a lot. It can be worth like 3 high runes plus. This season in particular though, very few people are going into the Rathma fight using a caster, and so this FCR slam has actually gone down the drain, essentially. You can see Deadly Strike and minus target defense, primarily minus target defense, being the one option to look for with this item now. So again, it just kind of speaks to the popularity, right? It changes a lot season to season, and so since Charger and I think Boazon are really popular for it this season, they both want the target defense more so than FCR, and so that's what's driving the difference in cost. My Paladin, where I'm going to swap over to my Dclone Gear. Generally speaking, I love to try to make a character that can do everything, and so with this gear swap and just kind of like minor charm changes also, I'm able to swap completely from between my Rathma build, Dclone build, and even a mapping build. So I really like to do that just for ease of use, because tokens are not free. They're not free at all. They always get more and more expensive as the season goes on. So I like to try to save those. Unfortunately, it took me 2 tries to get the Rathma fight, and so that's why I did end up respecking and putting all my points into resist fire and resist cold, because lightning again is just not that important for it. It is pretty important for the Dclone fight, given that this is a melee build. As a caster, it's super easy to avoid all of Dclone's lightning hose. As a melee build, it's very different to do that, and so I would prefer to have some points into resist lightning here. And so I would balance this out in order to make this build fully like both Rathma and Dclone just gear swap. But I will do that in a little bit. For now, this is my build for Dclone. And so you can see a lot of the main things to focus on is, again, health pool. I have even more HP for this fight than I did for Rathma. And then next up would be % damage reduction, so physical damage reduced by 50%. You really do want to cap this as much as possible. I was running it at 45 before, and you can feel a significant difference. And that's, of course, aside from the 90 fire resist that you need to have. You'll notice that none of this is really significantly overcapped because there's no lower resist in Dclone. That changed from like season 2 or 3, I think. It used to need some, but not anymore. And so you can get away with just exactly like 90 fire resist, right? You do want some cold resist potentially, because Dclone has a physical melee attack that does cold damage, but primarily you're talking about fire, physical, and then lightning resist. The physical comes from Dclone himself, but also from those meteors, because the meteors really get really crazy. There's so many that start dropping, starting from like the second skeleton wave. So you definitely want to be able to reduce that damage as much as possible, because it's very hard to avoid also. You can get used to the timing of it a little bit, so like when you see the meteor circle showing up on the ground, you kind of know when to expect the meteor to actually drop, so you can kind of avoid them that way, but you can't avoid all of them. No one can, so that's a challenge. If anyone can show me you avoiding all of those meteors, I don't know, I'll give you a bird or something, but gotta prove it. Okay, so gear-wise, you're looking at, like I mentioned before, kind of stuffing as many jaw runes in as possible. You're looking at the 50% PDR, and so there are a few options for that, and kind of explains why shaft stops are so expensive and why specifically 30 PDR shaft stops with 3 open sockets are so expensive, is because this means you can hit 50 PDR in potentially 2 slots or maybe 3 slots if you prefer, but I'm able to hit it with this shaft stop and this vamp gaze, and I'm able to fit a lot of job runes into to both. The Vexes here are because I didn't want to use like max all res slam on the metal grid or like nature's peace or max fire res slammed water walks, because those are frankly just very expensive options, and I was able to do it without, so I'm very happy about that. If I were to min-max this further, I would probably try to drop a Vex rune or 2 as much as I can, maybe get a 2 max all res metal grid, and then also be able to fit like a 2 max all res dungos here. So if I have 15 PDR from here, then I could potentially use like a 5 PDR Shaco up top also. So having 5 PDR from a Shaco would be really nice as well. But that would be another way to reach the 50% physical damage reduction. Otherwise, the gear is mostly the same, right? Here I've got max light res slammed water walks instead of the max poison red slammed ones for obvious reason. But same thing, Ghoulhides, Wisp Projector, Raven Frost with AR Slam. This Demon Hide Sash can speak to a little bit of what rare belts are worth slamming, which is a lot of them, right? So this one has 97 life, 9 to strength, and some res. It doesn't have PLR, it doesn't have PDR, and yet it's still worth slamming, and this is still a very good option just because the belt can get 2 max all res. If you can get 2 max all res on a belt with like a significant amount of life on it, that's pretty much already a good bossing belt, especially for T0 or Tier 1. So lots of belts are actually worth slamming and aiming for. However, the trade value of them may not necessarily be the highest, but their usefulness is very, very good. So again, you want as much attack rating as possible on this fight. The attack rating requirements for Dclone are actually even higher than the ones for Rathma, but kind of with the gear that I've got, you can see kind of some of the options that can take you to a very effective amount for the fight. Yep, and so when I am fully buffed, I'll be over 3.5k HP. Again, this could potentially still be mid-max a little bit more. I could probably reach like 3.6, 3.7 with the gear that I've got, with just like some slight changes. But that's enough for the fight. But again, it's never actually comfortable, right? You have to be focused the whole time. And so even with this much gear on and such good numbers, right, you might think, oh, this would be a super easy fight. No, if you lose focus for even a second, you can still mess it up. So that will cost you the value of the materials that make up the try. So there's risks to it anyway. But yeah, this is essentially the top end gear that folks are going to want to aim for. And then if you manage to find a 30 PDR shaft stop, preferably with a better life roll than the one I've got here, you can think about selling it clean, because folks are probably going to want to slam that, right? Going to want the opportunity to slam that. If you slam 3 open sockets on it by yourself, you probably want to put that up for offer, because you're going to get a lot of interest for it, right? So if you put it up for offer and you set an end date on it, folks are going to be looking for that item, and you're likely going to get a good number back as far as offers. Max all res metal grid, really great. Attack rating slammed Raven Frost and attack rating slammed Wisp Projector. It's not that hard of a slam to get on these, and especially with Raven Frost, it's a pretty common item. And so if you can find and sell this early on in the season, you'll probably get a better value out of it than maybe later on in the season when it becomes pretty common. And again, Ghoulhides, kind of slept on here. You also got your minus target defense Soul Drainers, minus target defense Death's Hand, other items to look out for. Water Walks with 8 max fire res water walks are very, very pricey for a good reason, because again, it just takes care of so much for you in one slot. Casters wise and kind of popularity of builds, from what I hear this season, Barb and Sorceress are near impossible to complete the tier 2 fights, and so the common items for those builds are going to be less expensive, right? there's not going to be as much demand for it. Charger is very popular this season. I think Boazon is very popular this season because it's incredible at it. Trapsin and Bladesin are kind of always really good at it, so if significant changes happen to them, though, you just can't necessarily predict what the prices are going to be season to season. So yeah, not able to provide necessarily exact pricing on things, but hopefully some of the background and the decision making behind some of these build choices or gear choices for these builds helps and makes sense. And I didn't ramble too much, but yeah, if you've got any questions, feel free to comment down below. If you enjoyed the video, please do like and subscribe. It helps me a ton with the channel, and I'll be able to keep bringing you guys more content. I did recently buy this 15 experience Annihilus charm because I was just tired of trying to make one myself, and that will give potentially, hopefully, be able to give me the third aura, which I am aiming for, is the level 99 aura. So I'll be pushing some pub maps. Maybe I'll see you guys in game. Either way, I hope you guys are still enjoying the season, and yeah, I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.